Hey everyone, it's Mace1370. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. We have a couple great RTA games to go over in the new Ardor season here. Before we get into that though, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, please check the video description below for a link to my Discord. Alrighty, so I pre-banned a Ravi for no particular reason really, and I got the first pick, so I took Clury. The opponent pre-banned Faithless Litica to prevent getting cleaved, and then he takes Tywin and Ruel. I've been experimenting with Clury a little bit. I've sped her up some, and I've been pairing her a lot with ML Lulu. I think it's a really strong combo. It's very similar to the, speedy damage Rylet and Flurry combo that many people ran earlier in the previous season. That kind of fell out of favor though because ML Crow came out and he does so much true damage. He would just completely obliterate the Rylets. And I think ML Lulu works pretty well in this spot despite ML Crow because you can give her Dingusorb. I will always call it Dingusorb and not Dignosorb. And that gives her a pretty fat barrier to absorb that ML Crow S3. She also goes into stealth and that reduces AoE damage. So I think she's much better able to tank that and then turn cycle around to get the barrier back, before he can S3 again. So the opponent has also taken Adventure Ras here and Spectre Tenebria.
I'll show you how I do.
I took Vildred for some AoE damage, and then I opted to take ML Crow here to give my team immunity and to prevent the Tywin from landing his S3. Also, the ML Crow S3 will do a significant chunk of damage to the enemy S10. And then I took Landy because she seems like a fun unit, and I haven't had a ton of opportunity to test her yet. She's more AoE damage for the Spec-Tenny, and the enemy team has a variety of buffs from, Ras and Ruel and Rylet. So I think Landy could be okay here. I'm fairly certain I need to ban the Tywin because if I don't and he bans my Crow, then that puts me in a really dangerous spot. Also, even if I get my ML Crow and I don't ban the Tywin, then Tywin might cleanse off whatever my Flurry does to Ruel or whoever else. So I felt like I had to ban the Tywin there. I kind of wanted to get rid of the Rylet though to prevent my units from just getting sniped, but I think Tywin was the right ban. I get the first turn, and it looks like the majority of my team is going up next, despite not getting the ML Lulu push. So I think that's kind of a slow ARAS. This match I think shows why it's important to have your ARAS, or at least some tank, pretty speedy, who can get defense buff up. That way you're able to get defense buff up before Arbiter Vildred goes.
You could try a little harder.
So I land the Provoke and the Death Break on Ruel, and see if the enemy still had Tywin here, this S3 from ML Crow could cleanse off, the Provoke, and then I'd be in a really bad spot. So no greater attack buff, but I get to rip the Arbiter S3 anyways, almost killing the Spec-Tenny, and dealing pretty huge damage to the rest of the team.
Take this.
So here the Ras decides to use his S2 instead of going S3 into the Clury. It looks like the opponent is trying to finish her off in time. She had immunity though, so she didn't get defense broken. And the Stenny was not able to finish her off. The Rylet is able to finish her off, however. But she's kind of already done the damage, that she needed to do. Even though the Provoke is now gone, Ruel is still death broken and practically dead. So I'm just going to rip off the S3 from Landy here. And it does significant damage. I was pretty impressed by it. Wiped out the Ruel, which was the main thing, and then also the Spec-Tenny. And then the opponent concedes.
So, I live another day.
Here's match 2, similar pre-ban from me, but this time the opponent pre-bans Fallen Cecilia, which kind of makes me think they might be trying to cleave me. I decided to take Falcon or Clury anyways, even though this might not have been a great decision. So they took Cerise here, and that makes me a little worried because I'm pretty sure Cerise will outspeed my Clury. But then they took ARAS, which is kind of a strange pairing. I guess they get a lot of extra dual attacks from each hero. So I decided to take top model Liluka again and Arbiter.
All that's left is ruin.
Mostly because I just kind of want to test, the combination of these units, more so than I think that they were amazing choices for this situation. Often against Cerise, ML Tywin can be a good pick, simply because Cerise uses her S3 and then Tywin immediately cleanses off the speed down, which is the most crippling part of it. And many times teams that utilize a Tywin don't even need CR pushing, so the restrict doesn't really do much. So the opponent takes Kayron and T-Surin. The T-Surin seems a little questionable to me, given that I've already taken top model Luluka. Because top model Luluka can soul burn her S1 or just S1 into T-Surin and she gets the proc. You know, that's two big chunks of damage that ignore damage sharing abilities and just take out the T-Surin right away. I take Seaside Bellona here because the opponent has two fire units, Kayron and Adventurer Ras. She also does a ton of damage to T-Surin, and is, I think, a good pick against her because she's constantly, you know, tossing off her passive S2s and chipping down the T-Surin. And then I also took Last Rider Crow here because he provides the ability to put up immunity and prevent T-Surin from doing T-Surin things. The opponent takes Basar, so I have to ban the Cerise here so that I can get first turn with my Clury. And now it's just pretty much, can I outspeed the opponent? So we do outspeed. Looks like it's actually a slow Basar because my top model Luluka is in front of him. So I toss out the Clury S3. Unfortunately, we only get the provoke. Would have preferred the Death Break here just because that would have allowed me to easily one-shot him. I'm just going to go for it though. I'd prefer to get my top model into stealth. And I think there is a chance that this kills. And here indeed it does, so Basar is down. I proc greater attack on Arby, which doesn't really matter a ton. I mean, it's obviously nice, but T-Surin can only take half damage anyways. So T-Surin gets to go. Unfortunately, she gets CR pushed up before my Crow goes. I was hoping my Crow would go before her to prevent all of this unbuffable and silence, but I decided to rip into it anyways just to get the damage out.
Son of light, burn!
So thankfully here Kayron doesn't have attack buff, and my Falconer Clury was able to proc defense buff from Justice for All, which is pretty huge because I think without that defense buff she would have died there. But Kayron hits very hard, and the opponent scoops. Okay, so I thought I would share my Landy build since I haven't shown that before. I have her on Guiding Light for the artifact, which is, I think, probably one of her best choices. Her kit doesn't have any innate survivability. You know how Rylet has evasion and other heroes have similar type mechanics to help them survive. Landy doesn't have that. So I think running her on an artifact that increases her survivability is very important. I think Guiding Light is probably the best choice for that, but there are other good options. Proof of Valor is a very good choice, and people do run her on Proof of Valor, so that is an option if you either didn't pull Guiding Light or if it's on somebody else. In terms of her build, I wanted her tanky. I got her to 14,500 HP and 1100 defense. I think ideally I would want the same stats I have here and then 15,000 HP and 1200 defense would make me very happy if I could get that. A little more tank I think would go a long way with her. The amount of damage she has is perfectly acceptable for me. The buff that they gave Landy really increased her, damage output, and so you can kind of get away with running less damage and more bulk on her now, which is really what she needed to become viable. Another nice thing is that her skill 3 here gives speed buff, which is really important because it allows you to kind of slow her down here. I have her at 181 speed. I have tested her on a build at 200 speed, which was also good, but it did not allow me to get the bulk and damage I wanted. I had to really sacrifice either damage or bulk to get her up to 200 speed. And I feel like she just doesn't need it because of that speed buff. Additionally, this puts her, in terms of speed tuning in a place where the enemy team is forced to decide, do I want to put my buffs up or, let Landy get stacks. So they have to decide that. You can see the gear here. It's all pretty well rolled. So it would require some really excellent pieces to push her stats higher. The only last thing I'll say is that the attack and crit damage I have, I think, is a little suboptimal. Because her passive scales up her attack, I think it's better to focus on attack with her. Just the way my gear rolled, though, it kind of went a little heavier into crit damage. But if you could kind of shuffle these rolls around and push more into attack than crit damage, I think that would be better, just because that's how she scales up. So overall, I'm really happy with her. She's plus 13 now. I will be bringing her to plus 15. And I think that's it. So if you have any questions, please put a comment below. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Later.